everybody, I'm back. And today we are going to finish my glass slipper nails. We're going to finish our romantic Cinderella story. Alright, so we've got our acrylic on. I've done a little filing already. I lost my second camera here for a little bit. Battery ran out. It's on the charger now, so I'm just gonna work without it for a little bit. So bear with me. All right, so we left off with Cinderella bumping into the prince at the masquerade ball. Okay, or this is the second ball, not the original ball that she went to when they first met. Second ball. She had bumped into him and knocked off his mask. She gave it back to him and he looks up at her and he says, "It's you." He was like, I was hoping I was gonna see you at the ball tonight. Now Cinderella, when she saw him, she was at a loss for words. I mean, how does she explain why she just took off on him about how her dress was magic, and if she didn't leave, she'd be back in her rags. But he didn't really ask for an explanation, so she didn't volunteer one either. All he said was that he was really hoping he would see her there that night, and how happy he was that she had come. And Cinderella was so happy because he hadn't forgotten her. He asks her to dance, and she dances with him, and she tells him that, she's sorry for what happened at the last ball, how she took off. And he tells her, you don't need to apologize. He's just glad to see her. He compliments her masks. He says that his mother loved swans. He said they were her favorite bird because when they fell in love forever. Their dance ends, and then the trumpets blast, and the royal crier announces the Princess of Lourdes, and Prince Charles' double goes over and greets her. After the dance, they walk through the gardens just like last time. She tells him that, she thought she was never gonna see him again, and then she leans over and gives him a little kiss on the cheek. He says, "What was that for?" And she says, "For reminding me that not all miracles need to end at midnight." And he kind of gives her a look like, what does that mean? And she says, "I'll explain some other time." And then he leans in to kiss her. Right then, she hears a very familiar voice say, "Anastasia, Drizella, there she is, follow me." Her stepmother. They must have seen her. And when she hears them, she just instinctively goes to run. The prince is like, oh my God, not again. And her, their fingers were interlaced, like they were holding hands. And she goes to run, but she can't pull away from him. He goes, no, don't go. He's like, I still don't even know your name. She goes to start to tell him, she says, and then she hears her stepmother's footsteps coming closer, and she just panics and she wiggles loose. She takes off. She goes to her room and she just collapses on her bed and she just cries the rest of the night. Now the next morning, she's awoken by Madame Ermina. She says that Cinderella has to help serve breakfast to the royal family this morning because the normal girl got sick. So get up, hurry up. And Cinderella's like, no, I don't want to, because now she's gonna have to see the prince. She just took off on him last night, and now she has to face him already. But she reasons, you know what, he didn't recognize me last time I was in my uniform, so he probably won't recognize me this time. Just keep my head low and kind of hide behind the other girls. I'll get the food served and I'll get out of there. Now, while she's in there, she leans over the table to serve the tea, and her mother's necklace was in her pocket, and it falls out into the king's teacup. And she's so embarrassed, And Madame Ermina comes running out, apologizing. She shoos Cinderella away. She goes into the kitchen. She's crying. I think she's just gonna run away again or something. And all of a sudden, she feels a tug on her sleeve. And he says, Cinderella, you dropped this. She turns around. It's Prince Charles. He has her mother's beads in a napkin. And then he takes her hand and he kisses it so gently. And she says, I'm not a princess. And he says, I don't care. She's like, but I'm just. And he says, just the girl of my dreams. And then, right then and there in the kitchen, he proposes to her. But she asks for a few days to think about it. The prince proposes, you say yes. And he was very understanding, of course. And he says, but, while you're taking the time to think about it, am I allowed to visit you? And she said, yes, absolutely. She would love to spend time with him and get to know him better. And he tells her that, he had thought that was her the first time they saw each other in the hallway, but that he had, kind of convinced himself that wasn't really a possibility. And they were so deep in their conversation that neither of them noticed Ferdinand, the Duke, in the corner, hiding and listening to everything they were saying. She tells the prince about her fairy godmother and how she came to the ball, the original ball in the first place. The next day, at the end of her shift, he had told her that he would have the Duchess dismiss her from the rest of her duties, but she was like, no. She's like, don't do that yet. I want to tell the Duchess myself. So the next day, after her duties with the Duchess were finished, she met the prince in the gardens. They watched the swans swim by and talked some more. He asks her if he can take her on an outing that night. So they do. They actually both dress as commoners. He gets a carriage from the stable and he takes her to an outdoor theater. He says that there's a ballet that night and it's supposed to be even better than the royal ballet. It's just their dress rehearsal that night, but he hears it's really good. So they're sitting on top of the carriage and there's a few other people around who've come too. And the announcer of the ballet comes out and he says, tonight we have a dress rehearsal of the play, The Dancing Princesses. And this is a side note, this isn't in the story, obviously, but when I was a little girl, I had a storybook called The 12 Dancing Princesses. And I don't know anybody else who was familiar with the story. I've never met anybody else that knows this story. And here they are referencing it in this book. So I was like, okay, so I wasn't crazy. There really was a storybook called The 12 Dancing Princesses. So anyway, announcer says the ballet is the Dancing Princesses. Cinderella goes, oh, I like this one. And the prince is like, you know this story? And she's like, yeah, you don't? And he's like, no, I always fell asleep at the ballet. And she goes, well, this is a story about 12 princesses who every night they sneak out of the castle and they go dancing in a magical fairyland. And their father is very concerned about where they go every night. He doesn't know where they go every night. So if anyone can figure it out, any man, of course, he will give them one of his daughters for marriage. As they're waiting for the play to start, she starts to talk to him about her fairy godmother, about magic being banned from the kingdom, and how all that went down. She wants to do something to help her fairy godmother be able to come back and come out of exile. And he says that he will help her, that, he's going to start attending the council meetings soon. So as soon as he can, he will bring that issue up. And this makes Cinderella realize that she thinks she's ready now. She thinks she's ready to get married. She leans over in his ear and she says, I'm ready. And he looks at her and goes, so you mean, she says, yes, I will marry you. And he's so happy. And they watch the rest of the ballet, sitting close. And she thinks to herself, so this is love. Now, while they're out, Ferdinand goes to see the king. And he tells him that Cinderella is a sorceress and that she practices dark magic and that she's put a spell on the prince to make him fall in love with her. And the king is like, I don't care. As long as he's getting married, I don't care. And Ferdinand's like, you can't mean this. And he's like, yeah, I don't care, whatever. He's like, leave me alone. He's like, I'm going to go to bed. Bring me my sleeping draught. So Ferdinand goes and gets, puts the sleeping draught in his tea. And then he also, his own concoction that he has gotten from a trusted pharmacist. Then as he's kind of drifting off, he tells Ferdinand, he's like, go to my desk and get out the decree that I've been working on. He's like, give it to Charles. Goes to his desk, he gets it out, reads the first couple lines, and it is a decree to put an end to the ban on magic and to allow magical beings to come back to the kingdom. Ferdinand don't like this. Not only does this kind of put the kibosh, so to speak, on his plan to gain more power, it also undermines his father's legacy. Apparently, one of the ways he got magic banned from the kingdom was he told the king that in other kingdoms, fairies and magical creatures were putting curses on princes and princesses, and they couldn't let stuff like that happen in their kingdom. He must have heard about what happened in King Stephen's kingdom. Anyway, so this is how they had gotten the ban in the first place. Ferdinand feels like if Cinderella marries the prince, she'll have a lot of sway and pull with the people, her being a commoner. Ferdinand doesn't like this. He believes in the old school ways of the nobility being in charge and that the commoners don't know what's best for them. Mostly, he just doesn't want to lose his power. Ferdinand feels he needs to eliminate Cinderella. So the next morning, Cinderella is awakened by Madame Ermina. She's telling her, get up, there's going to be another ball tonight. Everyone's expecting that it's going to be Charles announcing his engagement to whoever this mystery princess is. And Cinderella is like, oh my gosh, he's keeping his word. He's gonna announce it. Madame Ermina is like, okay, everyone in the kitchen, I'm gonna assign you your duties. It's tonight. She seems perturbed. She gives everyone their assignments, and when she gets to Cinderella, she says that the Duchess wants to see her right away and not to wear her uniform. She should go in her regular clothes. And all she has for regular clothes are the rags that she was wearing when she was sold to Mr. Levere. So when Cinderella gets to the Duchess's apartment, she's a little worried. She thinks the Duchess is going to be mad at her or something for lying, or she's not sure. But when she gets there, the Duchess is actually very happy. She's very happy that Cinderella is the one. And she tells Cinderella, you're going to have some challenges. There's going to be people in the court that don't like you for many reasons, but especially Ferdinand. And with the king's health deteriorating, he's not going to be able to protect them. And she just starts giving her advice on how to act in court, just things to look out for. Okay, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Okay, so then Cinderella decides to tell the Duchess everything about her step-parent, or her stepmother and stepsister, about her fairy godmother. The Duchess says, okay, that's fine. Let's get through tonight, because tonight the kingdom is going to meet their mystery princess. and you will show them that you are as lovely as your name. Cinderella, Cinderella. You know the song. So right before the ball, she sees Charles, and he gives her his mother's ring. He says that he would have loved her and that he wished that, she could have been there. And Cinderella wishes that her father and mother were there too. So they walk into the royal procession, and they're going to walk across the ballroom, and the prince is going to present Cinderella to his father and the court in general. As they are walking across the ballroom, they hear a voice say, "Stop! He can't marry her." Cinderella doesn't even need to turn around to know who that is. It's Lady Tremaine, followed by her stepsisters. Lady Tremaine says, "He can't marry her, Your Highness," speaking to the king. "He can't marry her." And the king's like, "What are you doing disrupting things?" He's like, "Get her out of here." She's like, "No, Your Highness, you need to hear what I have to say." And Ferdinand's like, let's hear her out. What do you have to say? And she tells them that Cinderella's a horrible person, that she steals, and just lies. And Cinderella's like, "You're lying." The Duke says, I distinctly remember going to your house, and you only had 2 daughters. "Is Cinderella your daughter?" And she says, "No, she's under my care, under my guardianship." He says, "So then when I was at your house, why didn't you present Cinderella?" And Cinderella's kind of like taken aback by this, like, since when does the Duke have my back? And he says to Lady Tremaine, he's like, "You broke the law. The law said every eligible maiden, and you stood in the way of that law. So, banished." And Cinderella says, no. She's like, "Don't banish them." But then she turns to them. She tells them, Lady Tremaine and her sisters, that she forgives them. And that she actually takes pity on them. Because it must be hard living a life with a heart full of resentment. They must be very unhappy people. And she hopes that they find happiness in their heart one day. And then the guards take them away. Now, the Duke shuffles Cinderella and the prince into like a side room so they can kind of regain their composure. He lets them kind of calm down for a second. He leaves. And he comes back and he tells Charles that his father wants to see him. Charles says, "Okay." He tells Cinderella, "Wait here for me. I'll be right back." And as soon as he leaves, some guards come up to her and they're like, "Cinderella, come with us. It's for your safety." And she's like, "I'm supposed to stay here." She didn't recognize these guards. She's like, "I'm supposed to stay here and wait for Charles." They're like, "It's orders." And they kind of hurry her along into like a hallway. They take her to a room. Inside the room is the Duke. And he says, "My dear, you are being accused of sorcery for charming the prince into falling in love with you." And she says, "That's not true, and you know it." He tells Cinderella that he wants her to write the prince a note saying that she had to leave, that she was never in love with him, and to not come find her. But she refuses. And the Duke says, "Yeah, I was expecting that." So he had a note prepared already. He took the ring from her hand and put it in the envelope with the note. He says that if she cooperates, he will put her up in a beautiful estate far away, and she'd have like an annual allowance. She wouldn't have to worry about anything ever again. He says that sounds like a pretty good deal. She says, no, it doesn't. She's like, "I'm not doing that." So he says, "Okay. Well, then I guess you will end the rest of your days in the South." So this note is taken to Prince Charles, but he doesn't believe it. And he begins searching for her. The king then calls for the prince to come to his bedroom. He's very sick. And he has a decree signed and ready to go that would give Ferdinand power as guardian of the kingdom until Charles is ready to rule, meaning he has a bride. And that, the discretion is Ferdinand's as to whether he's ready to rule or not. Now, Cinderella's in her cell, and she's finding solace playing with the mice. She's been given a loaf of bread, and she's kind of sharing it with the mice. Then a guard comes in. She knows that they're probably going to take her somewhere far, far away where Charles will not be able to find her. So she needs to escape. So her plan is, when the guard comes in, she's going to hide some breadcrumbs like in the folds of her dress and the mice. When the guard comes and tries to grab her, she throws the breadcrumbs into his hair and then releases the mice on him. And they run up into like his hair and his neck, and it freaks him out, and he's going crazy trying to get these mice off of him. And while he's dealing with that, she goes running out of the cell. She's running along a wall, and all of a sudden, like a secret door opens, and someone grabs her and pulls her inside. It's the Duchess and Louisa. Bruno had alerted them to where she was, so they came to get her. Cinderella's like, where are we? She's like, and the Duchess explains that these are some tunnels that were built in the days when they were sneaking magical beings out of the kingdom so that they wouldn't be killed. They come to like a fork in the tunnels, and the Duchess tells Cinderella, if you go to the right, it will lead you to the palace. If you go to the left, it will lead you to the city of Velours and wherever you want beyond that. She's like, the choice is yours. And Cinderella doesn't even hesitate. She chooses to go back to the palace. She chooses to be with Charles. So the three of them and Bruno sneak back into the palace. Now, there's a betrothal ceremony getting ready to start between Charles and the Princess of Lourdes. Cinderella tells the Duchess and Louisa to go and stop the ceremony. She needs to go to the Duke's office and look for proof that he has been poisoning the king. She suspected this when she had found an empty vial in the Duke's jacket pocket when she was doing some sewing. So she's in his office and she's rummaging around. She finds a note and it says, I have a need for a concoction that will cause grievous pain and will make someone want to step down from their responsibilities. She's like, bingo, this is it. So she runs out of his office and immediately right into his arms, the Duke's. And he calls for the guard, seize her. And she yells out, he's a traitor. He's been poisoning the king. And the guards kind of like hesitate for a minute. And they look at the Duke and he says, you're going to believe her? You're going to believe a sorceress? She's under arrest. And then all of a sudden, Prince Charles comes out from nowhere and he says, under arrest for what? And the Duke says, sire, she's has a spell on you. That's why you're in love with her. He's like, magic's illegal. It's the law. And he says, well, maybe we should change the law then. Then the king comes in and he's like, where is that traitor? And he's like, you've been poisoning me. You better have the antidote. The Duke pulls out the decree that gave him power over the kingdom. And he says, like, well, I have power over the kingdom, so you can't tell me what to do. And then the Duchess says, you might want to look at that again. And he's like, what? And she says, it's not properly signed, if you would notice. And he looks, and it's signed by Grinning Guinea, which is something that they would call the Duchess. Then the antidote falls out of the Duke's jacket pockets and he's taken away. The king takes the antidote and everyone's kind of like watching. I hope this works. And they relax when they see the color come back into his face. Then Cinderella goes up to the king and she asks him about pardoning or allowing magic back into the kingdom so that her fairy godmother, who had helped her, could come back. And he goes, well, what are you talking about? I already signed a decree that said that they could come back. And he was like, Ferdinand was supposed to give it to you. Oh, big surprise, he never did. He's like, well, it's already taken care of. And right then, Cinderella's fairy godmother materializes in front of everybody. And Cinderella says, everybody, this is my fairy godmother, Lenore. The next week, Cinderella and Charles are married. She wore her glass slippers, and the Duchess walked her down the aisle. She actually invited her stepmother and stepsisters. Lady Tremaine didn't come, but Anastasia and Drizella did. And over time, they were able to form a civil relationship. The story of Cinderella and her glass slippers spread far and wide. But that was not the end of the fairy tale. The fairy tale continues each day that they are together. The glass slippers were put on display in front of the palace for everyone to see. Now, if you look closely at the cushion that the glass slippers are sat on, you can see the word for what Cinderella and the prince found to be even greater than magic, greater than dreams, greater than hope even, and that's love. So yeah, that is the end of the story. It was so beautiful. I loved this book. But I'm a hopeless romantic, so other people will probably think it's super cheesy and annoying even. But not me. I liked it. Okay. I just got to do this hand and we'll be all done. I'll do that really quick and I will show you the finished product. Okay, I'm going to clean these off with some alcohol just to get the last of the, stray unicorn chrome off. Aww. Okay, one more thing I want to do. I want to put a little bow on this one because Cinderella's glass slippers had like a little bows on them or some sort of little embellishment. So I'm going to do a bow, and I already made one. So tiny out of the clear. I'm going to put it on this one. Now, need some Acrylic gel. Just need the tiniest bit. Alcohol to move it around with, and a gel brush. Okay, now I got the bow on there, but it doesn't match. It's like just the plain acrylic. So I'm gonna have to very carefully top coat and powder this. I have to use very thin layers of the top coat just so that it can get into all the little nooks and crannies on the bow. Okay, now just need some cuticle oil and we're done. And I have glass slipper princess nails. Ta-da! Okay, I'm gonna get this camera to focus. Glass slipper nails. For my Disneyland Princess Day. I'm so excited. It feels real now. Now that I got my nails on, I'm like, oh, I really am going to Disneyland. Well, thank you for joining me again today and indulging in my princess fairy tale fantasy. I always have had Cinderella syndrome. I'm aware of that. But, today was indulging in that and just making it worse. Let me know in the comments if you like princess nails. If you liked this video, let me know by giving it a thumbs up. It helps me decide what kind of videos to make. Make sure and subscribe and hit the notifications bell so that you'll know when I upload new videos. And I will be uploading a video from my day at Disneyland, Disneyland's reopening day after being closed for over a year. Life is coming back in California. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.